Marty Cohn, and welcome to episode 15 of PR Benefits, a show that explores the role of public relations in the COVID-19 era. I've been a PR practitioner for over 45 years, helping a wide array of organizations successfully communicate their messages to targeted audiences. I mistakenly thought that 9/11 would be the watershed event in my lifetime. Communicating in the aftermath of that tragic event was challenging. Then came the global economic downturn in 2008 with more lessons in crisis communications. However, 12 years later, we have the coronavirus pandemic and new challenges in uncharted waters have emerged. My guest today is Felicia Knight, president of Knight Canny Group in Portland, Maine. Let me tell you some things about Felicia. This is why when I say that I bring on PR professionals, here's the reason. After a 20-year award-winning career in broadcast journalism, Felicia spent a decade in Washington, D.C. in senior communications positions in the legislative and executive branches of the federal government. As communications director for U.S. Senator Susan Collins, she oversaw all aspects of communications and media relations for the senator's personal offices in Washington and throughout the state of Maine, as well as for the committees chaired by Senator Collins. Felicia was then appointed communications director for the National Endowment for the Arts. In that position, she helped create, shape, and promote national programs such as The Big Read, Poetry Out Loud, Shakespeare in American Communities, and the award-winning Operation Homecoming, Writing the Wartime Experience. In 2009, Felicia founded Night Vision International, LLC, a public relations firm that served Fortune 500 corporations, federal agencies, political campaigns, higher education institutions, energy interests, and international cultural organizations. In 2014, she merged Night Vision International with Canny Communications to form the Knight Canny Group, a strategic consultancy based in Portland, Maine, with national, regional, and local clients. Felicia serves on the boards of Portland Ovations, New England Foundation for the Arts, Thrive 2027, and on committees for the Portland Regional Chamber of Commerce. She is also the regular moderator for the annual Cohn Institute for Leadership Lecture Series at the University of Maine. Welcome, Felicia.
Well, thank you, Marty. Just listening to that, I think I'd hire me.
Felicia, this is your life. Well, but the one thing that I wanted to get into that wasn't included in this is, how did you get started in public relations?
Well, members of my family would probably tell you that I was born communicating. Kind of a precocious kid. I loved being in front of people. I was not shy, but my original love and pursuit for a profession was actually theater. And I pursued that. I was in New York and all that. And then I did something that, strategically speaking, would not be good for that career. I married someone who hated the city. Came back to Maine, and needless to say, there was some friction there. So that didn't work out. That's okay. I've since been married for 35 years, so that's good. But coming back to Maine with a skill set that, was acting, singing, dancing, that kind of thing, I just looked at other pursuits that I loved. And I grew up in a very current events centric, politically active household. So I went into the direction of news and journalism, and started at the absolute very bottom, doing radio news in a local station in Bangor, Maine, and really learning that craft and that profession on the job. I moved into television news, then had a 20-year career in broadcast journalism, and along the way, in the latter parts of those years, I was doing more and more political journalism, and arts coverage, because arts is what I liked, and when you had a certain amount of seniority, you could say, okay, I want to do this. And I also loved politics. And around 1997, I was having a very casual conversation with someone who held a position as communications director in DC, and he was leaving that job. And I said, I was asking him all about it, and did he like it, and why was he leaving? And in the middle of it, he just said, "Are you interested in this job?" And I said, "Yes, actually, I am," which was kind of a surprise to me. It was a capricious set of circumstances. And I ended up going to Washington and working there for 10 years, 5 years in the Senate, and then 5 years in the executive branch, the National Endowment for the Arts. And that position to me was kind of the confluence of everything that I loved in life. It was working with the media, it was politics, it was the arts at its highest point. And it was wonderful. That, however, was an appointed position. And when my term ended, I came back to Maine full time. I had been commuting that whole time between Maine and Washington. And I thought the logical thing for me to do is keep doing what I've been doing, but for multiple clients rather than just one client. And that's when I opened Night Vision International. And so that road to my current career is something that I often tell people about who are just graduating college and asking, how can I do this and that? And I just always tell them, you can do a lot more than you think you can, and you can do a lot more than your major says you can. And let life take you where you want it to take you. And it's been a remarkable journey. I couldn't have asked for a better life so far.
That's great. That's exciting. I'm glad how things have really worked out for you. So now let's shift a little bit. I want you to think back in time to pre-COVID-19. Pre-COVID-19. It's about 5 months ago, whatever. 6 months. What would you consider some highlights of your pre-COVID-19 career? Pre-COVID-19.
Okay, that's easy, because since COVID-19, that's a whole other story. And actually, it's not that easy, because there have been many fulfilling parts to my career. And if you count my Senate and NEA service, I was still doing public relations. I was just doing it for single clients at that point. And there's a wonderful feeling there in the public service aspect of what you're doing. And even as a political journalist, I really had no idea how hard people in government really work. And I know it gets a bad rap, and I know things are not good right now. But there are people at their desks from 6 a.m. until 9 o'clock at night, working on legislation, working on policy, working for the people. And I loved being a part of that. I loved being on at the beginning stages of things. You mentioned some of the programs that we did at the National Endowment for the Arts that are still going today. Poetry Out Loud is in all 50 states. And I think about sitting around a conference table with the chairman and talking about ideas with other colleagues of what should this look like? How can we make this work? How can we get kids excited about poetry, literature? And that program is still going on. The Big Read, still going on in some places. Operation Homecoming was so rewarding to meet with members of the military and ask them to write down their stories, some of which were very painful, some were very humorous, some were touching and loving, and to compile those into a book. That was wonderful. And then there was a documentary made from that was nominated for an Academy Award. So I didn't write and create the documentary, but I was able to help formulate those things and then tell the public about it. And I took many of those loves with me into doing public relations on my own and helping cultural organizations get publicity, helping a national nonprofit get congressional recognition for the work they were doing, and in fact, congressional mandate to continue what they were doing. There've just been, I think what I enjoy most is when I know that something I have helped work on and helped promote and helped get the word out about and help communicate makes a difference in someone's life. And that difference can be monumental, like legislation, or it can just be as simple as bringing a little bit of uh, light and entertainment into someone's life that makes it a little better.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. All right, so now I'm gonna go to the present. Um, what are you doing now for your clients during COVID-19?
Well, it's kind of gone in stages, Marty, because as this was beginning to unfold, especially here in the Northeast, which is where you are, we started with messaging about sort of internal planning. What do we say? What do we do if this? What do we do if our employees have to work at home? What do we do if we have to stop? Um, so there was a whole lot of pre-messaging and internal communications going on, internal and external, because you have employees in many companies wondering, what's going to happen to me. So there was a lot of that. And then the state of Maine went on lockdown on March 16th. And so that everybody was working from home, and every one of my clients went through a major shift. I had a transportation client that was providing a public service that was vital, but you're loading people into an enclosed space. So there were initial protocols there, and then initially, or after that rather, they had to stop. So here's a company that's been in business for 40 years, and all of a sudden everything grinds to a halt. Well, you have to keep communicating to people who wonder when's that service coming back, and it did just recently come back. And that was another communication challenge, was showing people all of the safety protocols that have gone into place, and also what a lot of companies are having a very difficult time communicating is the need for cooperation from the public. And people will ask, well, how long is this restaurant going to be open? Or when are you going to expand your hours? Or when are you going to increase trips with your transportation? And a lot of that is up to the public, if they will comply with safety protocols. And as we're seeing in many parts of the country, they're not. And some of that is a function of leadership here in the state of Maine. I think we have pretty good leadership. The government is communicating very well, both the Maine CDC, the governor's office, on what is expected of people. But it's difficult for companies to decide, how far do I push it with customers? Because, look at social media. Every day you see some poor counter person is being assaulted or yelled at by someone who doesn't want to wear a mask, or what have you. So we try in communication to help our clients. Once you decide you're going to reopen, or once you're going to expand a certain service, we have to be so upfront about what is expected of our customers so that there are no surprises. Right. And I realize that sometimes it's deliberate provocation on the part of someone who walks into a store with their camera phone rolling, just waiting to say, it's my right not to wear a mask. But start online with your website. Masks will be required. Signs at the front door before anyone even comes in. Masks will be required, so that no one goes in thinking, oh, it's okay if I don't wear a mask. But we have other clients as well, an energy company that I represent, who, part of their job is to go into people's homes. So what are the protocols? And they've done an excellent job of educating their clients to, here's what you can expect from a service call. Here's what we expect from you during a service call. So I'm sure everyone has told you this, but communication must be at the top of the list for any business entity, nonprofit agency that is trying to re-engage with the public in this time of COVID.
So that's a great segue to my last question, and that is, COVID will end.
Will it?
You know, I'm confident. I didn't say when.
Yeah.
I didn't say when it's going to end, but we're adjusting to, and I even hate to even use this term because it's drives me crazy. So I'm going to put air quotes around it. The new normal,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is. But what do you think is going to be the role of public relations as society begins this new normal?
Well, I think, again, I have to go back to the clarity and communication issue. Um, I don't, I don't see us ever really returning to the way we were prior to COVID. For instance, regardless of if there are multiple vaccines, if they are effective, if people take it, are you ever going to shake anyone's hand again? I will hug family members, but if I go to a networking event or if I meet a new client, I'm probably not going to shake their hand again. Now, part of that is I'm kind of a lifelong germaphobe, so I'm good with that. But you have a whole new thought process now. Are you going to get into that elevator with 10 other people? Are you going to say, I'll wait for the next one, or I'll take the stairs? I don't think that, I think that in many respects, our behavior is going to change. So does that extend to, will I go in to the latest, greatest restaurant that is packed and there's a line of people waiting outside to get in? Will I do that again? I don't know. Will I get on an airplane that once again is selling the middle row and has people cheek to jowl? I don't know. So I think clients and companies have to have that in mind. And I think everyone is in this rush to get back to where we were. And I honestly don't see us ever getting back to where we were. So that brings us back to, how do we do business? How do we make people feel comfortable? How do we honestly, truly operate in a manner that is safe for our customers and our clients? And then how do we communicate that to them? There was an article about 3 weeks ago in the New York Times that interviewed all the actual custodians who are cleaning airplanes, saying it's not what they're advertising. Everyone's saying we have all these new protocols and we're doing this and doing that. Well, they're still contracting out for the custodial help to do that. And they're telling people they're not giving us enough time. They're telling us what they want us to do. They're saying we have to bring our own cleaning materials. So, I'm wiping down this part of the airplane with the same rag I used on that one. So the transparency must be there going forward with how companies are operating. And then we as PR professionals have to guide them and help them understand that if you're going to say this, well, you have to do this. Because if we're going to communicate it, we have to be telling people the truth. And I think that's very key.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, the other thing, while we've been under this COVID, there have been some other socioeconomic issues that have emerged. Notably the tragic death of George Floyd, and do you think that as public relations professionals, we have a role in counseling our clients about that issue as well?
Yes, very much so.
It's kind of happening at the same time.
It is. And one of the things that I have watched with some curiosity and a little bit of dismay is what I think of as the opportunistic rush to be on the right side of history. And I commend any company that is taking a hard, true, and sincere look at its practices, at its history, trying to delve into their own personal biases, which they may not even realize they have. And I think it's important that all of us re-examine who we are, how we act, and what we have been doing. And so when a company, 5 days after there's been rioting in 6 major cities, comes out with a big statement, a national company that, we stand for social justice and we do this. Great, you've made your statement and no one can say you didn't. But what are you actually doing? So if you want to make that statement and you've never done anything about it in the past, I think if you want to make an honest statement, then make the statement that says we've taken a hard look at our business practices and what we've done, and we found we came up short and we have been lacking. And our eyes have been opened, and it's time for us to rectify that. So I think that as a PR professional, we need to counsel the truth and then communicate that.
Absolutely. I got to tell you a quick story is that I am a Rotarian.
Yes.
And I love Rotary. And after everything that's been going on with COVID, and even here in Vermont, you don't see a lot of people of color here in Vermont. And there were a number of incidents that happened that were where the racism really came out front. So when I had the opportunity, what I did was I invited as a speaker to our club meeting, we meet every week, the president of the local chapter of the NAACP. And I invited him to speak before the Brattleboro Rotary Club. Now, understand, to the best of my knowledge, I've been a member for over a decade. There's never been a person of color as a speaker. I realized that when I was going back. I was like, wow, we're in Vermont, but still. So what he did was he gave this conversation, he gave a presentation, and I recorded it because it was through Zoom. And we created a television show called the Brattleboro Rotary Club Speaker Series. Couldn't think of a better name.
Well,
and we put it out on. Thank you. And we put it out. We put it out on the local cable station as well. It's available on YouTube. And I also invited a reporter to cover the meeting as well. And it was a front page story about the fact that the president came and spoke to the Brattleboro Rotary Club. And his message was, think about your role during these times. What can you do? And what's happened in the ensuing week, it was only about a week ago, I've been getting a lot of phone calls from fellow Rotarians saying, gee, I didn't realize, let's continue this conversation. So what it did was it introduced the idea that we need to address it. So that's the time that we're in. And I got to say that because of the technology, talking to you via Zoom, it becomes, there's a silver lining in this COVID era in terms of the technology and the way that we're able to communicate. So I'm optimistic.
We need your optimism, Marty. Well, so stay with it.
Well, but that's what PR people do. PR people understand a problem, look at the challenges, come up with ways to counsel their clients. A client here could be, doesn't have to be a paying client, but counsel people and come up with effective ways to communicate. And that's what we need to do. And it sounds like that's what you've been doing and you will continue to do.
I think as a profession, we all will. I mean, you and I are both members of various Facebook groups that are filled with PR professionals, and everything that I see and read and the conundrums that people are facing, we're all doing the right things and we're all headed in the right direction.
And hence my optimism.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you, Felicia Knight, president of Knight Canny Group in Portland, Maine, for being on PR Benefits. I want to thank. Well, I also want to thank Ellenson at BCTV for helping me edit this show. I'd like to thank Rachel Cohn, my daughter, who is a professor of art at Ball State University, for helping me with some technical aspects of the podcast. And I also want to thank Twin Musicom for allowing me to use the music that you're hearing on the intro and outro of the show. It's something that I think is really captures the show. I'm Marty Cohn in Vermont. Stay healthy.
Thanks, Marty.